Houseless and broke? Bro, pick a struggle. Welcome back, y'all. So, in part one, I talked about how I spent 2.5 years renovating the Urban Jungle Rehab Project, which ate up all of my money, left me in financial ruin. I ended up losing tens of thousands of dollars on this project. What else? Oh, at the last minute, I found out that the quote unquote buyer was actually a wholesaler. So he ended up making more money leaving the table than I did. What? Had to sell it in order to avoid foreclosure. Ended up babysitting a whiskey and coke, just in my feelings. Feeling like, where am I supposed to go from here? What am I gonna do? Down bad. Go ahead, check out part one. That video is posted so that you can get all caught up and you understand everything we're about to talk about right now. Get into it. But then I realized that feeling sorry for myself simply wasn't gonna cut it. Throwing myself pity parties wasn't gonna get me anywhere. I knew from plenty of prior life experiences where I used to be that woe is me type of person that pity parties, nope, wasn't gonna do it. Instead, I could have spent that time coming up with a plan, talking it through with people who had information or could support me in some kind of way, and then look into how I could actually execute that plan. All of those pity parties that I had thrown myself over the last decade, honestly, had never worked out, had been a waste of time for me. So it really was up to me to figure out something that I could use to dig myself out of this financial and emotional mess. The thing about throwing yourself a pity party is that we are emotional human beings. It's only natural for us to feel disappointed when things don't go as planned, when we feel like we just can't catch a break. But wallowing in those pity parties for days, weeks, months, years on end, it certainly wasn't going to get me anywhere. I needed to make some progress. What would I gain from feeling sorry for myself in perpetuity? Absolutely nothing. How would living in a permanent state of self doubt and self ridicule get me through to the final stage of grief? Because that's exactly what was happening here. I was grieving. I was grieving the loss of my finances. I was grieving the loss of this project that I had put everything into, my heart, my soul, my passion. I was definitely grieving. And the final stage of grief is acceptance and hope. And that's exactly what I needed, and fast. The other thing about throwing a pity party is that you are the sole event planner, DJ and MC, host, photographer, cleanup crew. It's all you. In real life, in a happy and healthy reality, we all need a support system to help us get through life's challenges and make it to the other side where hope and sunshine reside.
What a money reside, what a money reside, what a money reside, what a money reside.
Everybody needs someone to talk through life's challenges with. And I don't mean trauma dumping. Please, let's get that clear. We're not dumping our problems and pessimism on people to where they have to burden what we're going through with no outlook, positive outlook, or any potential solutions in sight. What I'm talking about is having productive conversations with people who will speak love and light into you, who will give you solutions that you can actually use, where you are coming to the conversation completely open, transparent, vulnerable. That V word again, right? Vulnerable, where you are open to hearing anything that could potentially work to get you out of your situation. Where do I even go from here? That's what I had asked myself. I definitely was not going to find the answer to that question at the bottom of that whiskey and coke, or after a month of moping and wallowing in my sorrows and feeling sorry for myself. Having negative, dark thoughts was just not going to cut it for me. See, the thing is, I have fallen in love with being a real estate investor. It really spoke to me. I loved every part of it, and I was hands-on in almost every part of it. I really appreciated the idea of this potentially becoming my forever career, something that I could use to build wealth with for myself and for my family. rather than us all just working ourselves into the ground at somebody's job. I wanted to create something big for myself, something that I could leave behind for my son, but also help bolster my family with. I knew that I really wanted to find a way to continue to be involved in real estate investment, but at that time, hopelessness was just crushing my spirits. It was clouding my thoughts and my visions for the future. But I had to remember that at the very beginning of my real estate investment venture, when I was in that research phase, I had learned that there were many ways to be involved in the real estate investment space, not just the hands on actually renovating the property. So I knew that I could find a way to continue to be immersed in it, whether that was by being a private investor once I got my finances together again at some point, or I could maybe intern for another real estate investor. Maybe there was someone local who was looking for help. As for the thought of confronting the wholesaler after closing, that whole idea would have been completely pointless. And let me tell you why. See, I'm the one who didn't address the wholesale fee once I did find it on the closing statement the day before closing. I'm the one who knew that I was in no position of leverage, having received several pre foreclosure notices. I'm the one who knew that I had to sell this property and quick. Now, could I have potentially waited another week or two for maybe the next buyer? Possibly. But once again, it was on me to have moved forward with the transaction. I didn't sign over the deed or move forward with closing under any physical duress. So it was on me for having accepted that fee and moved forward with closing. There would be no pointing of fingers in this case. Accountability might be one of the top 5 most difficult things for human beings to master, but it's absolutely a crucial tool for us to maneuver life. Because we are emotional human beings, our natural knee-jerk reaction might be to try to shift the blame in the name of self-preservation. It's so essential, though, for us to be introspective, to look within and really reflect on what part we played in a situation that went left. Have you ever actually looked at the definition of accountable? The dictionary definition is to be required or expected to justify actions or decisions. The word justify here stands out to me because you do, in fact, have to explain your actions, your words, your decisions. Once you get to the root of rationalizing those, you can explain to yourself why you decided to say those words, why you decided to take those actions, why you decided to make those decisions. Again, getting to the root of it. At that point, you'll be able to know how you can replicate positive results, or you can avoid repeating negative results. In my case, there were several points where I made the wrong turns that led to me being in pre-foreclosure, having to look for help, and then selling the property before foreclosure commenced, all of which led me to a terrible financial situation. All of this could have been avoided, and I really had to reflect on and consider what I could have done differently to have gotten a different outcome. I mean, honestly, what was the alternative to holding myself accountable? Blaming everyone else who was involved in the project? I mean, sure, there was plenty of blame to go around, but at the end of the day, it was my project. I was the one responsible for it, succeeding or failing. Most of the people involved in the project actually did make a lot of poor decisions, didn't show up as their best, and that did screw me over financially and time-wise. So I could legitimately say, yeah, these people screwed me over, but at the end of the day, it was my project. It was my blame to accept. All of that happened on my watch. And oftentimes it got as bad as it did because I was unwilling to or afraid to just fire people. There's a saying about being slow to hire, quick to fire. I was doing that all wrong. Ultimately, blaming them for the past was not going to change my current situation. It wasn't going to put money in my bank account after selling the property. It wasn't going to put money in my bank account to have been able to finish the property, or money to cover my loan payments. Blaming them could have only created a hardened heart toward all contractors, all project managers, any and everyone involved in the whole real estate investment process. And that simply would have been counterproductive considering I still wanted to find a way to be in that space, even after this sale. Taking accountability certainly isn't easy, and I'll never pretend that it is. It took me so many months to get to that point where I was willing to be accountable for this whole situation. But it was a necessary journey to embark upon in order to clear a path forward for my life. I couldn't stay in this spot forever. As for my financial position, I was so grateful to have been able to repay both of my aunts. I made my payments to them and got it knocked out by the end of that same year, December 2021. And when I said earlier that I was broke and houseless, by houseless, I didn't mean that I no longer owned the urban jungle rehab property. I meant that I no longer had a home of my own. You remember when I said I was putting all of my money into this project, right? Including money for my own living expenses? Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever juggled rent and all of the finances for your household, plus a mortgage and all of the finances for that house? Yeah. If you've ever done that before, God bless you. I don't know how you made it through, but God bless you. It did not work out for me. It turns out that I couldn't afford my rent on top of everything else that I have been doing for the last 2.5 years with that property. So I voluntarily chose houselessness. And in September of 2020, a few months before the closing on the sale of this property, I moved out of my apartment and I moved into my car. I did this as a proactive measure to try to keep an eviction off of my credit. Honestly, before this whole project, before real estate investment, where I took on a whole ton of debt, my credit was A1. I had excellent credit. And at this point, things were going downhill, but I knew for sure that eviction on my credit was going to hold me back even further. So I got in contact with my property management. At that time, we were going through the panorama. You know what I'm talking about. So I was able to claim myself as an affected tenant, and I was able to negotiate half off of the required notice period and the required move out fee. Stay locked in for part 3 of the story, where I wrap it up with all of the things that were going on and how I was impacted by the sale of this urban jungle rehab project and what my takeaways were ultimately after experiencing this. Thank you for being here.